Nice job. I like the way everyone's looking. Eyes are listening. Eyes are looking, ears are listening. And you have your body parts out in your own space. So nice job. We're very fortunate today to have 3 of the candidates who are running for Waterville Mayor join us and answer questions that you have developed in your class. And we have community board members here that have those questions, and you're in for a treat. Not everybody gets to do something like this, so I think it's fun, and I thank Mr. Lessing for helping to organize it, and Ms. Davis, even though she's not here today, and for our candidates for coming. Thank you for coming to join us here at school. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Lessing. Before I do that, just a reminder, we have some very important guests in our building sharing their time with us, so we are going to treat them with the respect and the responsibility that we show all the people that come to visit, correct? Awesome. Thank you very much.
First of all, clap if you are excited. Welcome to the first annual Alberta Hall School Mayoral Forum. We have 3 candidates here. Stephen Cohen. Give him a hand. Nick Israel. Give him a hand. And Karen Rainford Thomas. Give her a hand. Here are the rules of the debate. We have 1 student from each class who is going to come up and ask a question. The candidates are going to answer. They have 1 minute to answer. When it gets to be 10 seconds before the time is up, I will gently say 10 seconds, and then let them know when their time is up. We're going to hold applause until all 3 candidates have answered the question. So don't applaud until all 3 candidates have answered the question, and then we'll all give them a big hand for answering each question. All right, are we ready to begin? Let's give all 3 candidates one more big round of applause, please.
My name is Rayvin, and I'm from Mrs. Lovendahl's 4th grade class. My question is, what inspired you to run for Mayor of Waterville?
Thank you, Raylee. I think what inspired me the most was working with kids like you through the Boys and Girls Club and in programs out in the community that we put together, and deciding that I had something to do to bring this whole community together so that we all help each other and help us grow and be a stronger community.
For the question, what inspired me was realizing after looking around that things don't get accomplished in our community unless lots of good people get together and are willing to step forward and make that difference. And hopefully, after today, you guys will all realize that you are the future of that, and you should always make sure that you have to say what's going on in your communities, because that's the only way that we're going to continue to solve our problems together.
Hi everyone. What got me involved in politics was my father, and I'm going to use a quote he told me, and hopefully this will inspire you. There's nothing that can stop you from changing the world. All you have to do is get involved. Thank you.
Give the candidates a hand.
My name is Joe, and I'm in the Soucy's 5th grade class. What do you think the hardest part of being mayor will be, and how do you plan to take on the challenge?
I think the hardest part about being the mayor is getting a community of almost 16,000 residents is to come together and make decisions that are going to affect each and every one of us. I can do that by holding a lot of more town hall style forums outside of city council chambers. I think that's one thing that we're going to do more to get out to various parts of the city and make sure that as issues come up, before we make major decisions, that we're actively going out and not just going door to door during campaign time because we want to get the votes, but because we want to hear from our constituents. That's how I plan to do it.
I think the most difficult part about being mayor is learning to communicate. And when we learn to communicate at the low level of us, like the elementary schools, this is where we first start right here, is getting to know each and every one of you, and then getting to know your parents, and getting to know what we need to do in City Hall to make the city better. So by involving the schools, from grammar schools to the middle schools to the high schools, that's how we're going to change everything. And that's going to be the hardest part for me, is getting everyone together on the same boat. But we're going to do it. Thank you.
I think the hardest part about being mayor is going to be getting used to it and reaching out to people in the community with all sorts of different voices, and not just listening to a small group, but listening to all you guys too, and decide what's best. I think the toughest job is going to be, however, money-wise, it's going to be making sure that our schools have proper funding and that our roads are taken care of. All those things are very important to people in the city, and we've got to figure out a very good way, efficient way to do it.
All right, give them a hand.
My name is YaJia and I'm in Mrs. Dunn's 4th grade class. My question for you is, how will you improve Waterville?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. How am I going to improve Waterville? I think one of the first steps we need to do is lower the taxes and invest more money into the schools, what's very sorely needed. I do work at the junior high, so I do understand what we're lacking, and I know that in this school in particular, we need some better things too. So my question to you is, what can you give me as a list for how we can better our schools? That's something I need to hear from all the students. And I think by starting with our education and lowering our taxes, it will make Waterville a better city. Thank you.
How to make Waterville a better city? Well, I think there's a lot of things we have going online now, but we need to have more engagement by all our population, whether it's the International Film Festival, whether we bring back a student photography contest that invites everyone to participate. So the key for me is getting everyone an equal opportunity to participate. You guys, your parents, all of you have a lot of skill and a lot of potential. And we've got to be the reach out that make sure you have the opportunity to reach that potential.
I think there were some of each of those answers that are going to be absolutely critical. We do need to lower the taxes, but to do that, it's going to be a real challenge here in Waterville to get the money to the teachers, into the classrooms, and to all of the other programs that we have here in town that we need. And we need to take charge of our own destiny, and by doing that, we need to really work to increase our tax base. We need to make sure that we're going out and letting everybody know what an incredible place Waterville is. I think actually our schools are one of our great selling points when we look around us to the other communities. But we do also need to make sure that we are engaging people, and we do that by making sure that when we make decisions in city government, that all of our decisions are done with an accountability to the residents here in Waterville.
My name is Michaud, and I am in Mrs. Dunn's 5th grade class. I want to know, what do you like about Waterville?
What I like about Waterville, I like the people of Waterville. I've had an incredible amount of experience putting together different community events, like I'm sure some of you have gone to North End Nights. I'm sure that the kids who came before you did the photography contest. I know they did. And I think we have a tremendous amount of resources here. So I think what I like most about Waterville is its people. It is people. I think that that's what counts, and that's what builds something meaningful, is the families that we will work for as mayor.
I would agree 100% with that sentiment. The people of Waterville are exactly what is Waterville's greatest asset. And I've told this story before. When I first became a young adult, I moved away for a few years. And when I moved back a few years later, the first thing I noticed was everywhere I went, people who I didn't know as I was walking down the street or in a parking lot smile and they wave and they say hi. This is a community that cares. If you look around, we have so many things here, programs in the city that are all about our community embracing each other. That is our greatest asset, and anybody running for office, I would say, probably cares that much about it too. I think that's probably the answer you're going to hear a lot.
Well, what don't I like about Waterville? I love the people here. I love working with the children. That's what I do for a living. And I like working with untapped potential. And that's what I see here, and I do see the junior high. And again, I'm just going to say it's the people. I love the restaurants. I love Main Street. And I love what we can do with this, with the help from everyone. Thank you.
My name is Raylee, and I'm from Mrs. Michaud's 4th grade class. My question is, how can you change Waterville so it's a safer place for kids?
Thank you very much. That's a very, very important question, and one I take very seriously. I was able to actually spend some time with the police chief, and I can promise you he has the very same concern. And one of our budget priorities has to be trying to make room for another officer on the police force. Our police officers are stretched very, very thin for the amount of work that they're required to do. Oftentimes they're tied up for lengthy periods of time simply because they are dealing with other folks and also helping people. So I think that's going to be a key factor here. And I think if you talk to the police chief, he shares your same concern, but you can be assured they're working very hard to take care of each and every one of us in here.
Hi guys. For safety in Waterville, we used to have a Southend police officer, and that's where I'm from. I am from the Southend. And I'd like to see that come back to that area of town, but I'd also like to see a local officer for the North End. So that way the officer gets to know each and every one of you. And I think that's a priority, because once the officer knows us and knows you, you can go to him and he can help stop the crimes before it starts. And I've also put on informationals about reporting crimes, which was at the Muscle Center, and that was back in March. So I do take your safety very seriously. So it's to have those police officers, I think, in the neighborhoods being number one. Thanks, guys.
That's a good question, only because I think there are two faces to the answer, and one is police and law enforcement. But the other is that you guys look out for each other. I have a daughter, when she was living in Boston and going to school, what I always told her on the phone was, wouldn't go anywhere alone. At least two. You look out for each other and care for each other, and then you'll see that there'll be less chance of harm coming to you and more chance for things to go the way that you believe they should go.
All right, good chance.
My name is Evelyn, and I am in Mr. Lesson's 5th grade class. My question is, how are you going to make Waterville more green?
Thanks for the question. Well, we do have our recycling program that we've started, and I think that's great, but what I've noticed is that we don't have recycling in the schools as much. We do the paper, but I think if the city's going to do it, the schools should also do it. That's the big thing. And also, I think that we should move into a different energy. We are doing the gas pipeline now, which is great, but I think we need to do maybe more community things, such as maybe a compost thing for the community in each section of town. Starting with little things, but I think the best, how do I say this? I think it's just right. That the best ideas are going to come from you. Because I'm old and I think one way sometimes. So you guys have all these fresh ideas. And I think that's what the best ideas are going to come from.
How to make us more green? Well, I think it goes in small steps. 3 years ago, we started a kids' garden at the Boys and Girls Club with just $200 and a whole lot of donations. And now there are 17 raised beds there, and the kids actually grow food that's eaten by kids in the after-school program. So it's bits and pieces. What I'd like to see is the next opportunity for investment is in more solar and wind application, and just a greater public education of what we need to do this. I've been recycling for years, and I just think we have to do that. We have to make that work. If there are bumps in that program, we have to make that work, because it's to our advantage to not make big piles of trash all over the place.
Well, the first thing we need to do is figure out our financial problems, because if we can't afford the projects we need to go green, there's not much else we can do. Right now, as many of you probably know, you've probably heard in your own homes, recycling is a big thing. One thing we need to do is come together between now and next year and make sure that the recycling program stays in Waterville. One thing I've heard door to door is everybody loves it. We've also heard that people want to have some kind of compost. Now, I know that the schools are sometimes, it's made a little tougher for the schools to try to save some of that food just because some of the restrictions that are placed on you. But hopefully we can work around some of those and work with the schools and work with the state to see if we can figure out a way to save a lot of what's being thrown out, because like Karen mentioned, it is a great deal.
My name is April, and I am from Mrs. Lee's 4th grade class. My question is, why is there so much construction on so many roads, and what can you do as mayor to change that?
Well, I think that there is a great deal of construction, but you understand that they're putting in the natural gas pipelines. So you've got to live with that for a while. But the question more is, I think, what resources we put into repairing them so that they work well. Now that's partly a question of when there are state roads, that's state money, and they're supposed to fix them, and we don't want to pay that cost. It's their road. But if it's our road, then we've got to have a fair way to schedule different streets so that everyone feels like they're getting their fair share of attention from the city.
Well, I can tell you until natural gas is done, it's going to be tough. But one of the things I've noticed as I go around is that it's not always handled in a manner that seems to make sense. I was trying to get one of my children to the doctor's office the other day, and I noticed that I went through, I think 3 or 4 blocks and seemed to be detoured on every single corner. So I think when these things are scheduled, we do need to make an effort as a city to find a way for, if we're not out there, or maybe don't know about it ahead of time, where citizens can call in, and we can control that. Other towns around the state have controlled some of this gas pipeline as it's being put in. The gas is important, we need it, but that's going to be the big challenge, because sometimes working with various private companies on city turf, the communication lines just aren't there. We need to make them available, I think.
And I'm going to agree with both Mr. Istro and Mr. McCoy that we're just going to have to bear with it for a little bit longer. The pipelines are almost done, but I do think we need to advertise it on the paper so that when construction is going on, it goes out to the public. So if you want to go that way, you can, but you have the option of just avoiding the whole thing.
My name is Karina. I am in Miss Fawcett's 5th grade classroom. What are you going to do to keep crime under control if you become mayor?
We're going to throw a book at it. I think that goes right along with all the answers we had before. I think we really need to understand our budget. And I'm not going to lie and tell you it's going to be easy, because it's not. Waterville faces some tough challenges. But I think when you look line by line, there is room in there to support our police officers. Again, I just like to back up what I said before. They are stretched so very thin for the crime that they're dealing with here in the city. But I also think another component to this is making sure that we create an economic environment to where people aren't resorting to crime. You know, there's a lot of issues that go into that, whether it's drug abuse or poverty, necessity. Crimes are not always easy to understand, and I think outside of supporting our police officers, we really need to create a good and warm environment here in Waterville where we're taking a much more holistic approach to some of the underlying roots of those problems that we have the crime in the first place.
As I said, I think that we need to put on more informationals, and we can do informationals at the school, we can do them in the community. And by doing that, you know what you can do, or if there is something going on, who can you tell? Starting there, but like again, I said, if it is in the budget, which I hope it is, because I really think this is a very important matter, is to have those neighborhood police officers. And by having your neighborhood police officers, sometimes you can stop the crimes before they even begin. That's really where we need to focus on this.
Let me be a little specific and kind of reflect some research I've done. Is that on the whole, Waterville is right in the national average, the mean with regard to crime. Interestingly, robberies were up here quite a bit, and I suspect that it has everything to do with drugs and people stealing things and selling them for drugs. Having said that, it's also clear that the concentration of the crime really is in the south end. The north end is okay. And so if I were mayor, I'd say the first thing is I need to put a community policeman as soon as I could afford it in the south end and see how that works, to slow that down, and if that crime moves elsewhere or if they leave town with that thing in place.
you feel about the pay-as-you-throw program, and would you change it if you became mayor?
Hi guys. I am a counselor, and I do represent Ward 7, and I did vote against pay-as-you-throw. I didn't vote against recycling. I voted against having to force families to buy these bags. I find that an undue burden on the families in the city. I would repeal pay-as-you-throw. Not the recycling, but the pay-as-you-throw.
First thing I say that works for me, that this isn't about me, you know. I've been recycling for years. I think that we've got to make our best efforts to make this work. Because other cities have used it, and they're fine, they've acclimated into it, and you reduce your tonnage of waste, and I just think that this needs to get a proper chance to work. Bags are expensive, I hear that all the time when I'm out my doors, but more and more I hear also people saying that they are pleased with the way this works.
Two things as we go around town. Everybody loves the recycling. Almost nobody likes to pay the $2 for the bag. We have a challenge here in the city that if we don't continue to keep our trash down, 60%, the city's saving $4,000 a week. It's a lot of bucks. And if we don't keep doing that, we're going to have to find some other way to come up with that money, which typically means it's going to be a tax increase. So what we need to do is come together and find a way. How do we do this where we keep this recycling and not charge all these fees? This week I've actually talked to some folks down in Scarborough, and they have a program where everybody has two 50-gallon cans. One is for recycling, one is for trash. And they have a private contractor come through and pick them both up. I don't know if that'll work in Waterville, but those are the kinds of solutions that we need to look around at and say, how do we make this work? I don't want anyone to have to pay the extra taxes because I don't like paying them. But we do need to get the trash down if we're going to have the lower taxes.
Hi, my name is Danica, and I'm in Miss Fortuna's 5th grade class. What are your plans for the abandoned buildings in Waterville?
I just think we need to be more aggressive about that. That we can write laws, that we can restructure our laws that will allow us to act more quickly. I mean, there's been numerous cases of buildings vacated and just open to all sorts of problems that have gone that way for a year and a half, and there's something wrong with that we can't do that. The other thing I have is there are plenty of places that are vacated that the mortgages were defaulted by the owners and they moved. And those mortgages are owned by mortgage companies in California, Texas, wherever. They could care what happens here. And I think we need some local lending institutions to get together in a group and figure out how to reel that back in to the local level so that there's some accountability here and that they can work more aggressively. I believe local banks and credit unions live here, and that's where the answer is going to come from the people who live and work here.
As a local community banker, thank you, Steve. I think this is absolutely an opportunity to let people know about community banks, because the reality is that not only do we need to start bulldozing properties every chance we get when they're dilapidated and causing a danger in neighborhoods, we need to get extremely aggressive with our zoning and code enforcement here in Waterville because that's a way we can do a lot of preventative work. But like Steve mentioned, there's a lot of these mortgages that are owed from out-of-state mortgage companies a long ways away. And in Maine, one of the challenges that we face is that we have one of the lengthiest, most complicated foreclosure processes in the country. And so it can take up to 2 years. It's a typical process. And so we also need to be working with our local banks to go down to the legislature and advocate for the changes that we need in those laws. So that as we go around and we have communities and neighborhoods, don't have to stare at these houses for 2 or 3 years where nobody's mowing the lawn and people are throwing rocks through windows. That's going to be a big challenge, but that's another way that we need to focus on taking care of it.
I've been a very good advocate of tearing down homes, and especially in the South End. I've also have been an advocate in when a city gets a house through tax foreclosures, the city has an option of either selling this house or getting rid of the house. And when the house is in such bad condition, you need to get rid of it. And slowly, you clean up the neighborhood. Now, down at the South End so far, since I've been the councilor, I believe there's been 5 to 6 homes that have been torn down, which would have been sold, and they would have been sold to these out-of-state companies. So I am a huge advocate in that. By changing how the neighborhood looks, it changes the pride in that neighborhood.
We are our last question.
My name is Nick, and I'm in Miss Reed's fourth grade class. My question is, what would you do to help Waterville schools?
Very good question, Nick. One of the things that we need to do, and the mayor doesn't have any kind of direct influence over education policy, but I think one of the challenges of our schools is making sure that the money that goes to the schools gets to the classrooms and to the teachers who really need it. And we also need to make sure that as a community, we are standing behind our teachers and supporting laws that don't tie our teachers to having to just teach you questions and answers so you can pass a certain test, but making sure that they're free to teach you the materials that need to be taught and develop those critical thinking skills. I think that's one of the great challenges we face here in the state and all over the country is that teachers are in a really tough spot. We need to make sure that we stand behind them. We need to make sure that we're letting them teach. And maybe free chocolate milk, I don't know.
As I said, I do work at the junior high, and I do know what we deal with every day, and what you students deal with every day. And it's amazing how, what little we do have, you guys always make it work, whether it's with a project, whether it's helping your classmates, but we really need to put money back into our schools. Because only by doing that, not just through technology. Technology is great, but you also have to learn how to use a dictionary. You have to learn how to write cursive and do your name. Just the basics to bring that back. But without money, we can't do this. So that's what I would do. Like Nick said, the mayor's just a figurehead, the mayor's an ambassador. But we, as a mayor, I have to learn to talk to everyone and to bridge it and bring it back here to make this school, the high school, the junior high, the Mitchell school, the best it can be.
It comes down to money a lot. The state is state government in Augusta is obligated to pay 55% of the basic skills package, and they haven't done that. So the first thing I'd like to do is bring all you guys down to Augusta to tell those state legislators that are voting on the budget to tell the governor that it's time that they met their obligation here, because that money allows us to pay staff better, because they would like to equip our schools better, and to make sure that we're right on top of our game, because I think that one of the great assets we got in the future is our school system, and I want to make sure that that's the centerpiece of the efforts that we make here.
Give them a hand. So, raise your hand if you learned something about Waterville today. Raise your hand if you learned something about Waterville. Give the candidates a huge round of applause. I have one more question for you. Raise your hand if you can vote. If you're a child raising your hand, you got to put your hand down. You're not at voting age. But what can you do? What can you do? Who can you encourage to vote? Your parents. Give a hand. Give me some applause if you're going to talk to your parents about voting. Election day is Tuesday, November 4th. I want to thank Stephen Acohen, Nick Isgro, and Karen Rancourt Thomas. Give them one more hand.
I'm going to say the same thing. Thank you so much for taking your time this afternoon to come and share your thoughts and opinions with our students. As you can see, they're very passionate about education. They're passionate about the keeping the environment clean and taking care of those things. And when it is time for you to vote when you are 18, I will be very proud that you take part in that opportunity as well, because you have a lot to offer in selecting people who will help lead the city of Waterville or even other parts of the state of Maine. You were a very good audience. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask now that you listen to your teachers as you head back to class. Have a great weekend.